Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This video is going to be about the bottom 5 heavy cavalry in 9th age. Now heavy cavalry is not that popular in 9th age, or at least it's not regarded to be as competitive as infantry and monstrous infantry, I would say, because heavy cavalry suffers from the fact that it can either bring static combat res in forms of big units, or it can deliver some damage, but usually not both. So the damage dealing pieces, they cost quite a lot of points each, and then if you want to make a big unit out of these, then you can invade just incredibly high point costs for them. Still, there's some units that work quite well as heavy flank hitters, and also some units that work quite well as just big blocks, like the Empire Knightly Order Cavalry. Yeah, we'll just go through the video and see if you agree or disagree with me. I expect that there will be some disagreements in this list. However, we'll find out. My number 5 for the pick this time is gonna be the Vampire Covenant Vampire Knights. As you can see, I put Baron Knights and Vampire Knights side by side here in this comparison. I think Vampire Knights are actually worse than Baron Knights. And there's a couple of reasons for this. So Vampire Knights, first of all, they count towards your swift death limit. So there's only a limited amount of models or units points that you can invest into swift death, and Vampire Knights count towards this limit. Within the category, they are the only non-flying move 7 swift death choice, except for Varkalax, but they are quite mobile because they can just swift reform all the time. Due to them being a single model. Vampire Knights are a unit, so whenever I played them, I always found myself lacking movement on them because they only have advanced 7, March 14. March 14 sounds really nice, but then again, you're a cavalry unit, so you have to turn and wheel and stuff like that. And then also, you only have 2 attacks per model. So if you have heavy armor, shield, and 2 armor, then you go to a 2-up armor save with resilience 4, which is decent, especially for heavy cavalry. It's quite nice. However, it's not the best. So you can take the Blood Dragon, Brotherhood of the Dragon upgrade, where you get devastating charge and plate armor, and that is quite good because that means that you're quite more potent on the charge. At that point, probably you also want to invest in a standard bearer with a banner of speed, just to encourage yourself from getting the charge. And at that point, well, you're already 75 points extra on the knight, so that's 325, and then a banner of speed, that's another 65 more or less. So then you're close to 400 points for 3 knights, 6 wounds. Yeah, if you invest a lot in the unit, then it's going to perform. But then again, with any unit, that is kind of the case. So I would prefer, if you want such hitting power, that you should go for either the Vampire Spawn that are a bit dicey without any armor, or Winged Reapers even. I found Winged Reapers quite good in armies that are not as aggressive, but that can rely a little bit on the reanimation. And Shrieking Ores, I think, also good. Varkalax are decent choices. To me, the Vampire Knights are just not that good, especially if I compare them to Baron Knights. And this is mostly because of the reanimation value on Baron Knights. So Baron Knights and Vampire Knights, they can both be reanimated. Whenever you reanimate a Vampire Knight, you're going to get 1 wound back. When you reanimate Baron Knights, you're going to get D3 plus 2 wounds back. So that is at least 3 times as many as with the Vampire Knights. And I have played Baron Knights before in units of 6. And then I played them 3 wide, because my Steadfast doesn't really help you on Baron Knights anyway. With this footprint, you also deliver 2 attacks per knight. You have offensive 3 instead of offensive 5, which is quite a difference. However, with Evocation Magic, you play Ancestral 8 quite often anyway, so you can get a reroll to hit rather than anything else. And then with a reroll to hit, offensive 3 and offensive 5 are not that much different anymore. On the charge, Baronites have strength 6, Vampire Knights have strength 7. There's not that many cases where that makes a difference. However, Baronites also still have multiple wounds 2 against standard, and that is not that common. However, if you charge Vampire Knights with Baron Knights, then probably the Baronites are going to win. No, but it's also against characters still quite useful. And I mean, the main goal of Baronites to me is more defined than with Vampire Knights, because Vampire Knights, they also really want to be aggressive. Baronites are just wounds that you have invested in armor, and then basically they're just for the grind. If you lose by 1 or 2 with Baronites, then you lose 2 models, and then you can reanimate it just a couple of models quite easily back with just 1 spell. So especially on these units of 6, I think a unit of 10 is actually too unwieldy unless you support it with a vampire again. But a unit of 6, 37 points extra model, so you're at 207 points. You want a musician on this unit, you want a champion on this unit. A standard bearer is actually nice, so then you go to 237 points. You don't really need a magical banner, but at that price point you are still below the cost of the Vampire Knights. You have the same amount of wounds, you have reanimate D3 plus 2 instead of 1. So even if you're down to just a single knight, you can with 1 spell potentially recover your entire unit, and I think that is just amazing. The only downside obviously is that you are not autonomous, so you have to be within march bubble of your general to be able to march. Yeah, that I would say it's a bit of a small inconvenience with all the dark coaches that are being played right now. So if you have some magic in your list, I would say just go for the Baron Knights and not leave behind the Vampire Knights and take some other juicy stuff from Swift Death. And then the next one for me, another dubious choice maybe. This is going to be the Kingdom of EQUITAINE Feudal Knights. So they used to be the Knights of the Realm. I haven't played against the new book. I shouldn't be relied on for opinions about the power level of the new book. I found a lot of stuff scary. I also found that still the Feudal Knights don't really impress me that much. So what do we have? We have wounds with resilience 3, armor 2, and heavy armor shield. So you have a 2-up armor save in the end. They have a 6-up Aegis, and with courage they go to a 5-up Aegis against wounds which the model cannot take any armor saves against. So basically you're going to have a 6-up Aegis at all time, and something like AP 5 you're going to have a 5-up Aegis against. Yeah. Offensively you have 1 attack at offensive 4, strength 4. Offensive 4 is a nice point to be at, because there's a lot of stuff in the game with defensive 3. And then you have lance formation, which I believe gives you fight an extra rank, and if you're not 5 or more wide, you get another fight an extra rank, but you cannot get rank bonuses anymore. So it's a bit similar, I would guess, to the old Knights of the Realm. I always found them just not impressive. It's if you have like 9 bodies, then, or even 12 bodies. If you have 12 bodies, then you're gonna come in with 12 attacks, 13 for the champion. You hit still most things just on a 4+, because either it has parry or it has defensive 4. There's some stuff with defensive 3, like Monstrous Infantry, most notably, I think. You come in with strength 6, so against Monstrous Infantry, probably you're doing quite well. However, against just normal infantry, just the 2-hit roll is going to be disastrous. And then, yeah, right now you don't even have combat dress anymore that you bring, except for the Knight Banneret. So, I don't know. You charge in, you have very big flanks on this unit usually because you're running them 3 wide usually. Maybe that will change with the new book. Yeah, and then you get somewhere, and then the next turn you just have like 11 strength 4 attacks because a couple of knights die, and 11 strength 4 attacks is not that good, I would say. And then if you compare them to Empire of SONNSTAHL electoral knightly orders, they have a 1 of Aegis or 1 of armor save. 1 of Aegis, jeez. 1 of armor save. So yeah, that makes a big difference. It's against anything with AP2. These guys are going to test on a 4 up, 6 up armor and an Aegis, and electoral cavalry are going to test on a 3 up. So basically, you're taking 1.5 times the wounds with the feudal knights than you are with the electoral cav. Against AP1, you're gonna take nearly double the wounds that the electoral cav would take. So that's a big difference, and that's why I don't like them. Then in the number 3 spot, it's actually going to be the Empire of SONNSTAHL electoral cavalry, so the non-knightly orders variant. Knightly orders gain +1 defensive skill. The knight gains +1 offensive skill, +1 strength, 1 AP, and they cannot take great weapons. So if you take that upgrade, I think they're quite good, because then with a shield and a cavalry pick, especially because you can take that for free as a knightly order, you go to AP3 on your strength 4 attack. Strength 4, I find, is basically just enough to get going, and AP3 at all times, even when you charged, is just amazing. You increase the model cost by 6 points per model, with a shield and knightly orders by 10 points, so you go to 33 points, which is still a little bit cheaper than the feudal knights. If you don't take these upgrades, they're only 23 points per extra model. But I think there's good reason for that, because if you don't take the upgrade, the unit is entirely shit. The unit only has, if you take a unit of 15 models, then you're investing a lot into them, and then I would say that you might as well take a smaller unit of 90 orders. If you take a unit of about like 10, then it still is going to cost you like 300 points more or less. The 300 point price point is a point where you want to be if you have a very high offensively tuned unit that can just take out a unit that is twice as expensive as it is. So you don't really want to do that with a unit that is built on defensive stats, because then the offense of your opponent is anyway gonna trump you. Normally this unit only has 10 attacks of damage output. You have to have an order in order to get some more attacks. I'm not counting the steeds here, which I actually should, because they strike as hard as the knights if you're not charging, and if you don't go for the great weapon. And the great weapon, I think, it's a bad choice on these guys, because you're only offensive 3, so you're gonna hit everything on 4+, kind of guaranteed. So even with 10 attacks, you would only do 5 hits, and whether these hits are strength 3 or strength 5, that doesn't really matter anymore if your unit is focused on surviving. And then as their knights, I would say that your unit is focused on surviving, so you want to take the shield for the 1 of armor save. Then you end up with the 10 attacks of, well, 16 attacks including horses and a champion at offensive 3, strength 3. Against normal parry infantry, that would be 8 hits, 4 wounds, and then 1 of them is being saved, so you cost 3 wounds or something. And the infantry is not going to do that much back if you just have strength 3 infantry. However, I mean, even if 1 knight already dies, then the enemy is going to have 3 combat res more because of the ranks, then because you don't have any ranks anymore for a unit of 10. Bigger units of this just doesn't work. So you can also take smaller units. If you take a unit of 5, then you have a unit with, on the charge, 5 attacks at strength 5. That's going to be 2 or 3 hits, and then 2 or maybe 1 wound. Yeah, that's something. And then when you charge, you're gonna have a banner, you're gonna have a charge and a wound, maybe 2. Oh. So that's like 4 combat res. Yeah, I'm not that interested anymore. So you could also play it on the flank as a scoring unit. You might as well also play a unit of heavy infantry in that case, because I don't think you're going to make use of the mobility of your unit, and also your mobility you can fix it still with one order, giving 4 inches extra march to some heavy infantry somewhere, and your heavy infantry is part of your parent support system, electoral cavalry or not. Yeah, I think there's just a lot of good reasons within the army to not take standard electoral cavalry, but that's just my experience maybe. Then for the number 2 spot, we will continue with Highborn Elves. So this is going to be for me the Highborn Elves, Highborn Lancers. I mostly put it here because of public vote. So I feel like the public opinion with Highborn Elf players is that these guys are utterly shit. But then again, Highborn Elf players also complain about everything. And I think they are right in the fact that citizen archers are currently quite overpriced for the 10 shots that you get at strength 3 AP0. I don't know if they're right about the Highborn Lancers. I think it's also a bit of a matter of internal balance with a lot of dragon armor being thrown around in the army. So anything that has a very decent armor save, like the Knights of Rima or your characters, they're going to be resistant to alchemy magic, and these guys are not. So if you feel the unit of 5 of these models, suddenly Quicksilver Lash is a very good spell for your opponent because, well, you have expensive cavalry. Them being core doesn't make them less expensive because they start out with 5 models for 210 points. They do get improved stats over other knight units. They have the extra offense, they have extra defense, they have lightning reflexes, they have advanced 9, so that is all really, really good. However, if you're only 5 models, then you're not going to really benefit from it too much. If you want to go to 10 models, then you have to pay 170 points extra, so that's going to be 380 points, 400, bit more than 400 points once you fully round out your unit. So you can practically fill your core with 2 units of 10 and then 10 archers or so. I can understand that is a bit limiting, maybe, in terms of price. And I guess you want Spearmen anyway, because Spearmen are awesome with the fighter extra rank that Highborn Elves have. Why not take Spearmen or Lodden Seaguard? And then leave your special choices for some Knights of Rima. Then we'll go to the number 1 pick. To me, this is going to be the Orcs and Goblins At-Bashers, the mounted At-Bashers. So the Feral Orc variant rips everything to shards. The Common Orcs are quite resilient with heavy armor and a shield, so they can get to a 2-up armor save with resilience 4. And they're not even too expensive at that point. Starting cost of 150 points, 24 points per extra model, shield only 3 points. The Common Orc is 4 points extra. So that does increase the cost quite quickly together with the shield. I would say if you want to go for Feral Orc mounted At-Bashers, just take regular Orc Bull Rider Feral Orcs. And if you want Common Orc mounted At-Bashers, please take just normal Bull Boys. So these guys, they come out of special instead of out of core. The Boar Boys from the core, I believe they're 10 points cheaper. So if you want to go for just cheap scoring, which is a good option with the mounted orcs, basically, I think it's a good choice to get just some Boar Boys. And then the trouble that both units, both the core variant and this one, run into is that they have an extremely low agility of agility 2. So a lot of stuff will actually strike before you once you charge into something. And then with the mounted At-Basher Feral Orcs, you have +1 attack devastating charge. You can take bad weapons, so then you're at a price point of 10 point or 34 points per model, which is comparable to the other cavalry in this list. And then, yeah, if you have a unit of 5 and your defense is only a 5 of armor and a 6 of Aegis, then you need a bigger unit in order to maintain your hitting power. So then, if you would go for a Feral Orc with devastating charge, with with bad weapons. Oh, you don't need the shield for that. So that is actually quite a bit cheaper still, because you can go for only 3 points per model extra with the FEUDAL. So you're at 27 points per model, sure. However, if you take that, then you still have the model that with a resilience of 4, 2 armor, 6 of Aegis, and yeah, it's not that resilient. So you're gonna lose a lot of guys before you get to strike, and then once you get to strike, sure, if you have 3 attacks per model, if even 3 of them survive, you still have 9 attacks with offensive 5, with bad weapons, with strength 5, with the orc special rules. So that is still quite okay, and still 3 boars that pitch in also strength 5 attacks. So that is, it definitely hurts when you are on the receiving end of a decent size unit. But then you might as well take the Boar Boys, the core version, because then you fill out your core points. You are going to strike at strength 3 instead of strength 4. You're going to have offensive 3 instead of offensive 4. However, with bad weapons, you go to offensive 4 again. It just seems like the core option is not worse in any significant way, and you spend your core points. So you can instead take Iron Orcs or Gnasherhead or anything else instead of these guys. It's not that this is a bad profile, it's just that in core there's something that is nearly as good. So there's no benefit from getting this, especially if you want to put in a character in your unit and you want to just buff up your unit, then you might as well go for the core boys, because the defensive is still 3, which is worse than 4, obviously, but still manageable. You still have resilience 4, you still have the same armor or the same Aegis. So defense-wise, there's actually not that big of a difference. And if you can take 10 models out of core, why not? Yeah, so that's going to be my list for this video. Let me know whether you agree, whether you disagree, whether you think everything should be totally different. And I'm especially keen to know how many people are in favor of Baron Knights over Vampire Knights. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you the next time.